September 2024, federal agents arrest Sean Diddy Combs at Miami Airport attempting to flee the country. Within hours, he is shipped to MDC Brooklyn, a facility a federal judge once called dangerous, barbaric conditions and not fit for pretrial detention. Then 15 months later, leaked footage reveals what life behind bars has really been like, and it's worse than anyone expected. Diddy is now at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a place that's been described as hell on earth. The facility itself sits in Brooklyn's Sunset Park neighborhood. Built in the early 1990s, originally designed to hold 1,000 inmates, it currently houses 136 prisoners. The Federal Bureau of Prisons made a telling decision in September 2024. They stopped sending sentenced defendants there altogether. When the agency responsible for running a facility refuses to send people to that facility, you know something's deeply wrong. Federal judges have called this building behind us barbaric. We save that term for conditions that are beyond the pale. MDC Brooklyn has become home to America's most notorious names. R. Kelly is serving time there. Ghislaine Maxwell was held there. Sam Bankman-Fried awaited trial behind those walls. Farmer Bro, Martin Scray, Jeffrey Epstein before his transfer to Manhattan, Fetty Takashi 6699, and Mexican drug kingpin Elmo Zambada Garcia. The list reads like a who's who of federal criminal cases. Luigi Manon, the accused killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, is there right now awaiting trial. And in January 2026, Nicolas Maduro, the captured Venezuelan president, joined this grim roster. Same hellhole, same conditions, different headlines. Mark, Diddy's defense attorney, didn't mince words about the facility. His professional assessment painted a stark picture of what his client was facing inside those walls. MDC is so bad, federal judges have questioned the harsh condition for those here waiting trial. So bad I was here 2 years ago during a cold spell reporting on detainees with no heat pounding on windows for help. Let's talk about what life actually looks like inside. Inmates sleep on steel beds with 5 in mattresses, no pillow. Some cells measure just 8x10 feet. Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer, who spent time in federal custody, described conditions at similar facilities with brutal honesty. I can assure you it is disgusting. Diddy was placed in the special housing unit known as SHU as soon as he arrived in September 2024. That's where high-profile inmates go supposedly for their own protection. But protection comes with a price. Solitary confinement conditions up to 23 hours locked in a cell every single day. 1 hour for recreation. That's it. The inmates that you're surrounded around just in general, a lot of them are brought up on pretty heavy federal indictments, right? So, just in terms of the atmosphere there, it's just certainly one that no one wants to be in. When Diddy needs to move anywhere outside his cell, restrictive escort protocols kick in. Guards surround him, handcuffed and shackled. Maximum security measures at every turn. Even access to legal phone calls is limited, making communication with his attorneys deliberately difficult. January 2019 brought a crisis that made national headlines. A week-long electrical failure, no heat, no light. The polar vortex hit New York. Temperatures dropping to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside MDC Brooklyn, inmates were banging on windows, literally pleading for help. The images shocked the nation. Occupy the streets till they get heat. In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold. I understand how cold it must be in those cells and not to have any electricity. The aftermath, a $10 million settlement, a class action lawsuit filed on behalf of 1,600 inmates forced the Bureau of Prisons to compensate prisoners for enduring frigid, inhumane conditions. The lawsuit details were harrowing. Inmates confined to their cell for days on end. Non-functioning toilets inside those cells. Complete absence of sunlight. No fresh air. Violations of basic human rights. According to the court, a 2016 report from the National Association of Women Judges called conditions unconscionable, stating they violated both ABA standards and United Nations minimum rules for treatment of prisoners. They identified immediate issues the facility was failing to address meaningfully. The absence of fresh air, complete absence of sunlight, lack of outdoor activities. Chronic understaffing makes everything worse. Not enough correctional officers, medical staff shortages. The facility simply cannot provide basic health care. The result? Constant lockdowns, 24-hour restrictions become the norm. Security measures collapse under the weight of inadequate staffing. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by, and violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees. The food situation. Inmates have reported maggot-infested meals, expired food served regularly. Sean Diddy Combs raised these exact complaints in court filings. Poor quality contamination documented. Health code violations that somehow continue unchecked. Medical mistreatment is rampant. Botched cancer diagnosis. New York Senator Andrew Jennett cited these failures publicly. The constant lockdowns mean medical negligence becomes inevitable. When inmates can't access doctors, lives get endangered. The system fails them at the most basic level throughout the facility. Mold and fungus. Ghislaine Maxwell described raw sewage problems during her detention. Rats in cells. Hazardous physical conditions everywhere you look. Complaints are documented, filed, recorded, but nothing gets fixed. The problems just accumulate. Violence and death have become routine. June 2024. Iriel White, awaiting trial on gun charges, was stabbed to death by another inmate. The Bureau of Prisons confirmed it. 1 month later, July 2024, Edwin Corderero died in a fight that broke out inside the prison walls. In April, a group of detainees at prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 SHS were recovered from the attack. Corderero's lawyer told the New York Times his client was another victim of MDC Brooklyn, an overcrowded, understaffed, and neglected federal jail. That is hell on earth. Hell on earth. That phrase keeps coming up. It's not hyperbole when federal judges, defense attorneys, and inmates all use identical language. 9 inmates were eventually charged for killings and assaults following those summer 2024 deaths. The charges demonstrated the Justice Department's commitment to addressing the violence, but they also revealed a darker truth. Weapons circulate freely inside. Security is inadequate. Violence is out of control. Diddy's lawyers cited reports of 4 in the previous 3 years. For inmates who saw no way out except death, mental health crisis, no adequate support, lives lost because the system couldn't provide basic psychological care. In terms of fighting their case, it just makes it all the more difficult because now in terms of you being able to communicate with your attorney, you are at the realms of just what's going on with respect to the facility. Judge Jesse Furman wrote a damning statement in January 2024. It has gotten to the point that it is routine for federal judges to give reduced sentences based on conditions of confinement in MDP. Prosecutors don't even fight it anymore. They acknowledge the state of affairs is unacceptable. City leaders have tried to inspect. Congressman Dan Goldman attempted to tour the facility. He was refused entry. His response question is, what are they hiding? We now have a track record showing unacceptable, unconstitutional conditions. This is dangerous. It's lawless and it's unacceptable. Representative Dan Goldman, not holding back as he stands in front of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, criticizing conditions for around 100 newly placed IC detainees inside. What exactly are they hiding when elected officials can't inspect a taxpayer-funded facility? When transparency evaporates? When conditions are so bad that judges refuse to send people there? We're beyond crisis. We're in systemic failure. Brian Buckmay, an ABC legal analyst who's visited MDC many times, laid it out clearly. Allegations of no heat, no water, people not getting fed, numerous lockdowns, inability to provide just basic health care. The Federal Bureau of Prisons responded to a CBS News New York inquiry about the allegations made today with a statement that reads in part, "The BOP takes seriously our duty to protect the individuals entrusted in our custody as well as maintain the safety of correctional employees and the community." The Bureau of Prisons issued statements claiming they maintain a secure and humane environment. They said an urgent action team was addressing challenges, adding permanent staff, fixing maintenance issues. They insisted conditions had improved, but the evidence told a different story. For 15 months, Diddy lived in that facility, a place where federal judges refused to send defendants, where violence ran rampant, where basic human dignity seemed like a distant memory. From his $48 million Miami mansion to a cell where he couldn't breathe fresh air or feel sunlight on his skin. That was the hell on earth he called home. And as his trial finally concluded, one thing became clear. No matter what verdict awaited him, he'd already served time in one of America's most notorious detention facilities. Living in that hellish environment, surrounded by violence and neglect, it was only a matter of time before Diddy's life would be threatened. October brought a moment that nearly changed everything. Diddy, sleeping in his cell at MDC Brooklyn, suddenly found himself staring down death. An inmate stood over him, makeshift weapon in hand, seconds away from ending it all. But one former warden who worked at the facility says Combs' life could still be in danger there. And that former warden is Cameron Lindsay, and she joins me now. Charlie Finney, a friend of over 30 years, broke the silence October 22nd, revealing details to the Daily Mail that sent shockwaves through the media. The longtime producer didn't mince words about what happened inside that notorious facility. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's got 4 years and change that he's going to ultimately have to serve, although he has served already a year here as he awaited his trial and then went through his trial. So, ultimately probably was going to serve about 2.5 years. TMZ quickly confirmed the details, verifying with their own sources that this wasn't just another prison rumor. The same day, their sources described it as a targeted intimidation attempt, a calculated message delivered in the most terrifying way possible. He said, I was sleeping in my bed in the prison. It's a federal detention facility in Brooklyn called MDC Brooklyn. And there are federal inmates who are in many cases waiting for their trial as well. According to Finney, Diddy was just seconds away from serious harm or death. The critical moments that followed remain murky, and Diddy claimed that somebody held a knife to his throat. He woke up and this guy basically had him, and he had the knife and Diddy was at this person's mercy. Now, whether guards intervened or if Diddy fought off his attacker, nobody's entirely sure. What's clear is that someone wanted to send a message. Finney laid it out plainly. He doesn't know whether Diddy fought the guy off or if God showed up in time. He just knows it happened, and the resolution remains shrouded in mystery. Combs isn't the only famous inmate to be housed there. We had Sam Bankman-Fried there, R. Kelly, Ghislaine Maxwell. They were all inmates there. Sean Combs is being kept away from the general inmate population. You say his fame makes him a target. But here's the thing Finney emphasized. If that inmate actually wanted to harm Diddy, he would have been harmed. It only takes a second to cut someone's throat with a weapon and kill him. Death was absolutely possible in that moment. Instead, Finney believes it was probably a way to say, next time, you ain't going to be so lucky. Everything in prison is intimidation, psychological warfare designed to break you down. I could hurt you at any time. In a little bit of a more threatening language, but said something along, in that vein. And it does seem like it was an intimidation tactic, and it sounds like the guy could have obviously again hurt Diddy very badly. Yet, Finney expressed confidence that with Diddy, it won't work. The producer pointed out that Diddy is from Harlem, emphasizing his street credibility and toughness. He won't be intimidated, and his survival instinct and fighting back capability remain intact. If it is true as reported that he is housed in the Special Housing Unit, it's important to note that the Special Housing Unit is a lockdown 24-hour lockdown unit. During sentencing proceedings, defense attorney Brian Steele informed the court about the incident. He explained that one time an MDC inmate threatened the rapper with a shiv before a guard stopped him. The assailant, Steele suggested, was trying to earn prestige by hurting Diddy. That prestige motivation runs deep in prison culture, gaining reputation for attacking a celebrity, earning fame through violence, climbing the prison's social hierarchy. It's all status earned by hurting a high-profile inmate. This is a man accustomed to the very finest. He was arrested at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York City, known for its luxury suites and exceptional food and wine, where one-bedroom suites start at $3,000 a night. He was probably staying in something larger. Finney explained why Diddy became such a target. Inmates of facilities like MDC specifically target individuals convicted of related crimes. They believe they are entitled to deliver prison justice, taking it personally because they see victims in their own family members. But it's austere. It's strict. It's impersonal. It's cold. And it is a very tough place to be detained. The perspective prisoners adopt is chilling. It could have been my mom, my auntie, my daughter, Finney explained, describing the mentality that drives these attacks. Prisoners create personal connections to victims, adopting a vigilante mindset where violence becomes justified in their eyes. What makes the situation even more complex is what Diddy kept from his family. Finney revealed that Diddy has kept a lot of this stuff to himself because he doesn't want to worry his family. He's trying to protect his loved ones from the full horror of his reality. From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to trafficking. The reality is brutal. If you're charged with anything, prison becomes an extremely dangerous environment. For offenders, there's a permanent target on your back, a constant threat that never goes away. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. Charucci's constant worry stemmed from understanding this reality. The 60-year-old producer worries about his friend, fearing he'll always be a target for fellow inmates. "We're not talking about a regular person," he emphasized. "We're talking about Diddy." The most disturbing question remains: how did the inmate sneak into Diddy's cell? The security failure during sleeping hours exposed just how vulnerable even high-profile inmates are. Guards weren't watching. A cell supposedly secure had its system break down completely. I've had clients describe NBC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in. Later, Finney clarified to Los Angeles magazine that the knife incident wasn't recent. It was the very incident that Steele referenced during sentencing, not a second attack. The same threatening incident just finally being discussed publicly. Steele had told Judge Subramanian during October's sentencing about credible threats against the rapper's life. He urged the court to consider his client's safety while in federal custody, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The defense team kept alerting proper channels about security concerns, making recommendations for future housing placements, and requesting protection, but the threats continued and the system kept failing. I mean, let's be honest. He's in jail. It's unpleasant. It's supposed to be punitive. The question is, how do they keep him safe? Given everything that happened with Jeffrey Epstein, they are under a lot of pressure to make sure nothing happens. He is in a special area in the prison, and that is for people that are VIPs. In the end, the intimidation succeeded, mission accomplished, fear instilled, message delivered, violence became normalized, safety compromised. It's psychological warfare, and it's a harsh reality of prison life. Right? I think that's a great question, and I don't think we have the answer to it yet because he is going to be transferred from this MDC Brooklyn facility likely to a federal prison that's more of a long-time facility. It's likely going to be a place in New Jersey. His former cellmate, Raymond Castillo, finally set the record straight about what actually happened. The narrative that Diddy woke up with a knife to his throat, not quite accurate, according to the man who was there. Well, he has asked for a drug and alcohol treatment program, so he wants to go to a prison that has a program that he can take in and hopefully better himself so he doesn't have issues once he does finally get out. So he is looking for a place like that. So he will go somewhere else. Castillo explained to the Daily Mail that the incident started over something simple, a chair. The inmate was persistent, demanding Diddy give up the seat he was using. But Diddy stayed calm, questioning why this particular chair mattered so much, trying to understand what was really happening. The confrontation seemed to end, but the inmate returned with something that changed everything. A makeshift shiv. That's when Castillo jumped between them, grabbing the attacker's hand before the weapon could be used. What amazed Castillo most wasn't the danger, but Diddy's response. Even with his life threatened, the music mogul suggested the man pray about whatever he was going through, offering understanding rather than escalation. It was a moment of humanity in an environment where violence too often defines a culture. Prison cameras caught the entire incident, and authorities eventually intervened, transferring the Wolb attacker to another unit. But the message had been sent and received. For Diddy, now transferred to Fort Dix's in New Jersey. The nightmare at MDC Brooklyn is behind him, but the message sent that night with cold steel pressed against his throat won't be forgotten. The system failed to protect him, proving that even celebrity status can't shield you from the brutal reality of life behind bars. MDC was over, but Fort Dix awaited a new prison, new rules, and a whole new set of dangers. October 30th, 2025. After 15 months behind bars at MDC Brooklyn, Diddy finally got his transfer. Fort Dix is New Jersey, a low-security federal prison about 50 miles northeast of Philadelphia. His lawyers thought this was the answer. They couldn't have been more wrong. Diddy's attorney, Tenny Giragos, had written to Judge Subramanian with high hopes. The letter stressed the need to address drug abuse issues, maximize family visitation, and focus on rehabilitation. Subramanian responded by recommending Diddy be placed as close as possible to the New York area and considered for the Bureau of Prisons RDAP program, the Residential Drug Abuse Program. RDAP qualification meant special treatment. If completed successfully, it could knock up to a year off his sentence, early release, an incentive to participate, a reason to change. But Diddy wasn't placed in general population. He was housed in the Special Drug Program Unit, separate from regular inmates. Additional security, protected placement, still restrictions. Former Fort Dix inmate Joe Judick had some advice for the disgraced mogul. The Real Housewives of New Jersey star served 41 months at Fort Dix on federal fraud charges stemming from a 2013 indictment. Speaking to U.S. Weekly, the 53-year-old shared his thoughts on what Diddy needed to survive. As long as he keeps a low profile and doesn't try to act like a big shot, he'll be fine. Judick advised, humility required. Check ego at door. But Judicka's words turned darker. I've seen people get stabbed over an onion. He revealed violence over nothing. Trivial disputes escalating quickly. You ain't in there with the most people. He warned. Dangerous inmates everywhere. That's pretty gets a little hectic in there. I mean, when I was there, it was pretty hectic. There was times where it got real hectic to where, the El Salvador crew and other Bloods got into it, and they literally, it was like a big fight where they had to bring in the heads and calm everything down from different prisons. Fort Dix wasn't the rehabilitative haven Diddy's lawyers might have hoped for. Just different walls, different dangers. Still hell, attorney Mark Giragos warned on his podcast, two angry men with Harvey Levin, that Diddy would have a target on his back wherever he ended up. Fame being a curse. So concerns weren't just talk. They were real threats, actual dangers. November 2025, TMZ obtained the first footage of Diddy behind bars at Fort Dix. The video showed his daily life in federal custody working in the prison media library. His job assignment, distributing movies and religious materials to fellow inmates, organizing materials, mundane tasks, far from glamorous, humbling work. But the media library wasn't his only job. Diddy was also assigned to prison laundry duty, manual labor, physical work, washing inmates' clothes, cleaning the facility, from mobile to labor, the full complete. Living in the drug treatment unit meant structured environment, counseling sessions, group therapy, recovery focus, monitored closely. According to his publicist, Judah Engelmeyer, Diddy was taking it seriously, working on himself, focus on growth. But conflicting reports were about to surface. November 2025, an alcohol incident. Prison officials caught Diddy consuming fermented concoction made with Fanta, sugar, and apples. Homemade prison brew. Pruno creation. A violation of rules during his first weeks at Fort Dix already causing problems. Behavior concerns mounting. TMZ broke the story. But Diddy's official spokesman, Judah Engelmeyer, called the claims gossip. Mr. Combs is in his first week at FDI Fort Dix focused on adjusting and working on himself. The publicist stated, the rumors claiming Mr. Combs was caught with alcohol are completely false. His only focus is becoming the best version of himself and returning to his family. Then a few days later, he allegedly broke another prison rule by making a three-way phone call, which he said was to his legal team. The disgraced rap mogul seen with gray hair and gray beard in his new mugshot. The alcohol incident wasn't Diddy's only alleged rule violation. Days later, he made an unauthorized three-way call. He claimed it was to his legal team about issuing a statement to the New York Times. But prison regulations are clear. Multi-person calls are prohibited. Inmates could use them for illegal activities. Drug smuggling, gang violence, witness intimidation. According to prison documents, Diddy called an unnamed woman first. Halfway through their conversation, he asked her to add a digital person to discuss blogs. She added an unknown male to the call, circumventing prison rules. When confronted, Diddy explained he was unaware of the phone regulations. He said no one had informed him about the rules. He never received the standard prison admission handbook, but officials weren't sympathetic. They recommended Diddy lose 90 days of phone privileges and 90 days of commissary privileges. The ruling was filed on November 4th, his 56th birthday. Angelmo defended the call as a procedural call initiated by one of his attorneys and were protected under attorney-client privilege. There was nothing improper. Then came the consequences. His original release date was May 8, 2028, but it changed to June 4, 2028. Nearly a month added. No official reason given, but the timing spoke volumes following the alcohol reports, following the unauthorized calls, discipline consequences, time added. Diddy wasn't alone in his high-profile company at Fort Dix. Former NBA player Sebastian Tellet was currently serving time there after pleading guilty to fraud charges in March 2023. Farmer bro Martin Scray had previously been held there, convicted of lying to investors and cheating them out of millions from 2 failed hedge funds. Mafia boss Joseph Big Joey Messino, reputed boss of New York's Banano crime family, had awaited trial there on racketeering charges. But Diddy's legal team wasn't giving up. The judge allowed an expedited appeal process. December 23, 2025. Deadline for the opening brief. Government response due February 20th, 2026. Arguments possibly scheduled for April. However, in court, he was known by his legal name, Sean Combs. In July, he was found guilty of transportation to engage in following shocking revelations about his so-called freak-off parties. Appellate attorney Alexander Shapiro filed an 84-page appeal asking for immediate release judgment of acquittal, vacation, and conviction remand for resentencing. The appeal argued Judge Subramanian acted as 13th juror that he found Diddy coerced, exploited, and forced his girlfriends, led a criminal conspiracy, and trumped the verdict. On October 3rd, Combs was sentenced to just over 4 years, fined $500,000, and ordered to partake in mental health and substance abuse programs. In a last-ditch letter to the judge, the 56-year-old wrote that he was stronger, wiser, clean, clear, and sober. The sentence being illegal, Shapiro argued, 3 times longer than he should have received. Despite acquit more serious charges, the judge relied on acquitted conduct, a constitutional violation, the basis for appeal. There was another angle, a First Amendment defense, a separate basis for overturning convictions. Rights violated at consumer performances that took place during free course and hotel nights. Combs' attorneys claimed he didn't actually have with those present. He was involved in videos he filmed just watching protected activity. They argued Judge Subramanian had previously stated at some point illegal activity can't be laundered into constitutionally protected activity just by desire to watch it. Rejecting the defense argument outright, the appeal brief added a sarcastic comment, whatever that means, questioning the judge's logic, fighting every point, comprehensive strategy, leaving no stone unturned. While his team denied the drinking claims, a recent report did hint at Diddy's birthday dinner. On November 4th, the hitmaker turned 56 behind bars. According to People Mag, he was offered a choice between navy beans and cheese pizza. Bad boy for life. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Diddy's expected release date is May 25, 2028. With good behavior credit, early release is possible. If the appeal succeeds, freedom could come sooner. But the reality remains stark. Diddy is behind bars at Fort Dix, working in the media library, doing laundry duty, living in the drug treatment unit. Far from the lavish lifestyle he once knew. The next few years will determine everything. Whether the appeal succeeds, whether the sentence gets reduced, whether Diddy can truly change. Fort Dix's may not be the rehabilitative haven his lawyers hope for, but is where Diddy must prove is more than the allegations, more than the conviction, more than the headlines.